Oh yeah, Massey Designs made this for me. Massey Design.
All right, let's give this another try, right? So, one of the things I wanted to get back into was the tutorials on how I learned to program a CNC plasma machine under my own roof, right? My background's in 3 and 5 axis programming, tool designing, things like that, but the factors kind of change when you have it under your own roof, right? You're dealing with your own software, a new post processor, a machine that you're trying to work out the settings to. And a lot of the help that I've had was from YouTube and other people who are doing the same thing, right? So I figured I would create the way that a video on how I do it and what I think helped me be successful or somewhat to an extent on how to create these files that are cuttable files, right? So when I'm making files to CNC Plasma Cut, I specifically start with Inkscape if I'm using a file that someone had sent me, whether it's a logo or things alike. Um, so Inkscape, and then create a file, an SVG file, and then take it into Fusion 360. So we'll jump into a breakdown of all of that. And it'll probably be a little bit fast paced. Obviously, feel free to stop. I'll stop yapping here in a second and get into the fun stuff. So you will be able to find Inkscape online for free. It's a pretty powerful application for what it's worth. And if it's just to make SVG files, I guess that's all I really use it for. There are a whole bunch of other applications you could use it for photoshopping and modifying videos and even creating your own drawings. But I never really got into that. I'm only going to speak on what I use it for, which I think is pretty user-friendly. It took me a little bit to figure it out, and then we'll get into the bridging of the letters and things like that. So what I'm going to use is just this logo that you see down here because I have it saved, and I'll use a PNG file. You could use basically a screenshot if someone sends you a logo, and then basically not necessarily reverse engineer it, but tweak it to how it becomes a cuttable file for you and your specific machine. So I'll minimize myself here so you don't see my big old head. I'm also very excited. We have a new office set up here, and the only decoration we have is this a piece of aluminum I cut the other day just to see how aluminum would cut. So pretty bare walls, a little bit of dog toys, but we're getting there. So if you have Fusion 360, open it up. This may be applicable to other softwares, so to say, but we're specifically going to dive into Fusion 360 because that's what I have, right? So this is a blank slate, and then I'm just having that open for now. I'm going to open Inkscape, Inkscape, if you want to look it up online. And then once you click Inkscape, you'll come into a prompt of this sort, right? So we'll do new document, and then you'll open to a very retro-looking paint background of a blank canvas, right? So you can modify the measurements that you want, but I skipped that process by just uploading the file here, creating one, and then scaling it to size in Fusion 360. So we're going to do open, and then I'm just going to use one of my logos, like I said. So this is going to be just a generic logo of mine, and you're going to be prompted with this little screen. I never change these settings. I never have. Everything seemed to work for me. Disclaimer, if you have a file that is made by a graphic designer, there's going to be multiple layers, and we could probably show a little example of that, but you'll run into a process that gets very distorted and has thousands of lines and points and things like that. For the sake of this video, we're going to use a very generic shape, right? My logo is an M, which is 3 cutouts, and then Massey Design at the bottom in a square or rectangle. So I don't mess with these settings. Hit OK. Now it's uploaded. There's going to be a few steps to create an SVG file that are very simple. You're going to left click on your logo or your image that you want to use. I pay no mind to this stuff. We just get it out of the way if it wants to. So you click on your photo, right click, trace bitmap, then you'll be prompted with this screen. I also don't mess with any of these settings. I never have. And so it works how it works. There's other people that are very good at this stuff that may have way better recommendations for you. This works for me, and that is only what I'm sharing. So you click that, right click, trace bitmap. Don't mess with any of that. Hit update. You're going to see a little image, which basically populate what is going to be the outline of whatever your image is. Hit apply. And then what you'll have now is a duplicate, essentially, of what your photo is. So this one with the very tight corners to our logo is going to be our good file. And this one in the back is going to be our original upload. So you're going to want to delete the one in the background. click and drag. You don't really have to pay any mind to this border. You could adjust that if you get into the settings. I'm not getting to that now. So kind of just ignore it if you want. So here's your logo, right? Or your sign or whatever it may be. You could do, obviously watch for copyright stuff, NASCAR logos, Budweiser logo, any logo you want, Nike logo. You grab something with permission and use it accordingly. And I do not offer legal advice. So that's a path you explore by yourself. So once you have this, make sure it's highlighted. I find this works best for me. When it's highlighted with still the arrows on it, you're going to do File, Save As. You're going to make sure the save type is Inkscape SVG. So we're going to do, just keep it the same name. We're just going to add test for video. And then hit save, right? So it's going to populate to the where I keep my logos. I just know it's going to say test for video real big right there in the text. Head back to Fusion. You're going to start a new sketch. How I prefer to do it is pretend you're looking down at your table, because Fusion with the update kind of has, when you get into the manufacturer, it wants to see it from a work coordinate system as if you're looking at the table. So your right is going to be X, your up is going to be Y, however you want to look at it. You kind of use the 3-point method this way and go that way. So you start the sketch looking down on the Z plane. What I do like to do sometimes is, if you already know how big you want the sign, let's say your customer says, I want a 24 by 24, but it's a rectangle, so you're not sure how it's going to fit. You're going to go, we're going to make this a construction line. You're going to do 24, tab 24, and you're going to have a 24-inch square right there. So this is when you can communicate with your customer and say, hey, look, I'm going to, we'll get to that in a second. Insert SVG. We're going to go insert from my computer. You're going to go to the file where you saved your SVG at, which was right here, test for video. Upload it, and then you're going to see it. It's going to be in a scaled orientation, smaller than you want, maybe bigger than you want sometimes. And what I like to do is just drag it to a top left corner, and then you could drag the scale bar out so you could see until you hit that, just about that 24 inches, right? So it's almost a square. We're really not that bad a shape. It's right around it, and then obviously you got the text down here, which is below it. But for the video's sake, we're just going to leave it how it is. Hit OK. Now you're going to have these green lines. You're going to highlight the whole SVG that you uploaded, right-click, fix, unfix. This will then turn your lines blue and make them editable. And now you got a blue file, right? So you're going to want to get I like to delete my construction lines because they get in my way. If I can grab them, grab there. And then you got this one. And you got this one. And so forth. So now you just have the logo. Now, because let's say you're making a sign, you want to make a rectangle of these sorts, right? So maybe you want to bring the text in a little bit, or you want to cut the whole thing out. What we could then do is then delete these lines. And then restart a new center area of a non-construction line to make a rectangle around there, right? So we'll measure our spacing here to, let's say, there. And you got 1.3 inches. So what we're going to do is bring this line to, let's say, there and call it 1.3. What the hell was that? We ain't going to want to do that. So that's just a format in how the file was created. So what we're going to want to do is put a construction line. And this is just for video's sake. You can manipulate these files however you wish. Right? So we're just going to constrain this construction line to here. And then we're just going to pull this line into that 1.3. And it changed everything. So obviously, everything's constrained. So we're going to want to take this out. We're going to take that out, this out, this out, this out. Now it should be free. So 1.3, 1.3. So our spacing will be a little bit equal. And like I said, this is just for conversation's sake. We're going to make this a little bit bigger so it looks a little bit more uniform. So now you have a sketch file that you could create a solid from. If we don't like the spacing here, we can move it. But what you're going to run into next is how you have these letters that want to fall out. There are a million ways to do this. You pick what suits you best, but you do not want to make a sign where the center of a letter or a whole letter is cut out. And we all know why, but sometimes it looks ridiculous. So depending on the size of your actual project, I would just go what you think is a center point. Or maybe let's say this is a D. We're going to go 275 looks fine. You want to expand past the letters, and you'll see why in a second. So we're going to hit enter. Now you have this arbitrary rectangle in it. You're going to go in, clip, clip. You could get rid of these construction lines. They're not doing anything. And you're going to want to erase all the ones to allow you to make this D look like a D without cutting the whole perimeter of it out. So you want to get rid of all the things that may make it connect. These lines, I'm moving a little bit fast here, but you'll basically, it'll make sense here in a second. A lot of you guys already know how to do this. Bear with me. So now you have, this will be cut out and this will be cut out. So you have two different sections of the D to make it a letter that ultimately bridges is what we call it here, right? So now you have an A with, as you see this file imports with a couple radius. So we're just going to leave it. I know we use 275 on the other one. That's calling center line right there. I'm going to call center line. Let's call it whatever. So 275 may be a little bit wide because you don't want the A to look too goofy. So we're going to go 0.225. And then we're going to keep that where it's at. And then for the sake of this video, we're going to delete these lines and make it easier. And then same thing. And unfortunately, it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. I'm sure there's some AI software out there now that'll bridge files for you. Now you have an A, right? So your M is going to be that A, S, S, E, Y, D, E, S, I, G, N, right? So that's good. So ultimately, your letters and this 3 sections of this M are going to be cut out. So now we're going to close that out because we don't care. Hit finish sketch. And you can manipulate this however you want. Is your material 1/8 inch thick? Is it 16 gauge? Is it 14 gauge? Who knows? You're going to then go to extrude because you're going to create your body and you're going to click your now extrudable sketch. And we're just going to call it an 1/8 inch for old time's sake. 1/8 inch. Whoa. Now you have a 3-dimensional sign. I prefer to make it 3-dimensional instead of using the sketch when I go into the manufacturing process because it just makes it that much easier. Sometimes you'll be able to just click the whole face of your design and it will populate a cut pattern. A lot of the times, Fusion has its qualms with it, and we may get into that here in a second. So it looks all right. For the video's sake, we're here. You have a piece of metal. You could add some holes to hang it on a wall, etc. And then you could do that at this stage, right? You go in, put some holes, add a background, however you want, you build it, right? This is just one single piece for one operation. And then we're not going to save it. This is just a step through it to see how you get from a picture file to a SVG file to a cuttable file. So once you have your design, obviously if you're doing this, save it at some point. Design, go to your manufacturing process. Now you're here. Now you're ready to start programming it with in this instance, a CNC plasma cutter. Milling's different, turning's different. There's a bunch of different operations in here, but specifically for cutting, this is what we're going to do. So you're going to hit your setup. You're going to go up here to setup, and then you're going to hit setup again. And you are, hopefully it doesn't freeze like that on you. So the model orientation is what I spoke about earlier. It's going to want to see it in a coordinate system. You could change that in here. However, we build it on that axis, so we don't have to worry about it. Your stock in here should be relative size box. And you get in those settings and change it however you want for different operations, or so be it. So we'll click out of this. Now your model is always going to be the piece that you want to cut. So make sure that's highlighted. So that's your body. We could have named it. I didn't. It is what it is. So that's your setup 1. Rename it however you want to categorize it. Setup. Then you're going to hit cutting. So here's where if you manipulate your feeds and speeds however you see fit for the machine that you have and the recommendations you have, or the history that you have on what is successful. I know that 1/8 inch cuts pretty good with, let's say, 60 inches a minute off the top of my head. Geometry. Now, this is where we're going to get into probably some errors, but that's what we're doing it for. I also like to go right to the linking tab sometimes, right? We know that some of these letters are going to be small. So our gap between here and here is 417. So maybe we're not so bad. But you don't ever want your lead-in distance to exceed the biggest distance you have inside of an area, especially if you're picking the full face of the part. So we're going to put our lead-in distance 0.125 just because I think that might work for us. Passes. You're going to do a finished overlap. This is what allows your laser to then pass the point that you start at to drop your part out. I think a rule of thumb is half the thickness of your part. So we're going to 0.625. Our heights, I never mess with that. Our geometry, now this is where it's going to get a little sketchy. If you have a part like this and you're comfortable and you think everything is going to cut, you could click the whole face contour and click the face of your 3D modeled part. Hit OK. Hit OK. And then you'll probably be prompted with what tool to pick. You can go to your library. I have a Razor Cut 45, a 45 amp plasma cutter. And we have errors, right? So we see that it's only cutting the perimeter, the 3 parts of the M, and everything but the MA in the name. Why? I think it's just random. So sometimes I could go in, you can manipulate it, hit your preferred lead-in point, there, and there. Now I picked those because they're flat lines, and they give you some area to lead in and lead out. 9 times out of 10, when you pick lead-in points, it then screws up the rest of your program. Which it did. Now we're missing an S, and we're missing a Y, and we're missing half of a D, and the rest of the whole thing. So it is what it is. So if I get frustrated enough, I just delete it. I go here, and I pick chain. I pick this piece. Not sure why I did that. And this piece. We're going to make sure our settings are the same. And they're not because I restart it. 60. And you could kind of manipulate these, but I want to try and make these specific numbers work. Setup. Oh, library. Razor Cut. You want to see a green check mark here. And we still don't have it. And there's no reason that this should not cut this out. This is just something in Fusion that drives me berserk every time I try to do something. There's no reason this shouldn't cut out. There's more than enough room. And now it's saying this one won't cut. So this is a problem. Maybe it's just me. I have no idea. It's your linking constraints and this and that. I've heard it 1,000 times. I should probably do some research on it. It is what it is. All right, so now we got green. Now we know we have a cut. We're ready to cut. You'll see with those, it'll lead in, it'll cut around, and then we'll end on this side. So it bypasses your start point. So now we have the M cut out. We'll just call that 3 parts of M. And I didn't mean to put it lowercase. 3 parts of the M. A lot of times I like to break big programs up in case there is an issue in one area or so forth, right? So we'll go back. We're going to do another cutting area, and then we're going to do chain again. Now, just because we know that we had the issue before, we're going to do 0.1, and then we're going to keep this 0.0625. 0.62. Maybe it's yelling at it because of that. 60 inches a minute. We're going to go chain. We're going to go there. We're just going to hit OK just to see if it likes that. Now it likes that. So we got an M. We go back to that. Click chain again. Or click A. That doesn't like that. Why? No idea. There's no reason it shouldn't be able to cut that. Especially in the areas that are given. Add that point. OK. Now it's green. So we got MA. And this is where it gets a little bit. So I might fast forward this and you kind of get the point. Pick this S. Okay. S. So we're good so far. We'll click the same area on the S just because maybe it's making a difference. And it's not. it's just, it doesn't want to pick it there. I don't know why. It's got to be something in the geometry. We'll click there for our start point. Now we got another green check. So click your silhouette. Ooh, sorry. We'll do chain. I like to click the areas that have the most room to play with, right? So this flat line right here, you can't really go wrong. It's a straight cut in Y. And you don't have to check for the green thing every time. It just saves you the time of going back and retrying to find out which ones are bad and all that. Excuse me. See, it doesn't like that Y. Who knows? Who knows why? Oh, it's got me in an orthographic view orientation. Why is it giving it? Why is it showing me like that? Now we want to look flat on it. Let's see. Let's try there. All right. So now we got partially done. We'll do here. I'll show you why we haven't done the perimeter yet in a second. That. All right. Try that. That's good. That's not good. I will say that I run into this issue primarily when I'm dealing with certain file types. See, now I had this part and now it doesn't want to work, right? So why? I don't know. Now you just got to keep tinkering with it, right? So it can be frustrating. I guess it's part of the game. But you see how time consuming it can be, right? If you want to make something quick sometimes you have to have that conversation with somebody. Hey, look, I got to pick apart your file. I got to make a new file. And then this all in turn goes into your pricing, right? How do you price something like this, right? I've been yapping for 22 minutes now. My dogs, I think, see a fox outside. So I'm gonna hope for the best here. We're gonna go with the G, and then we're gonna hit this N, and then hopefully get all the letters. And they're green, right? So now we have the 3 parts of the M. We're gonna call this all letters. And then we got one more thing to do, is the perimeter of the whole square or rectangle or whatever it came out to. Chain, hit that. We're going to change our feed speed's good. Our lead in, we could change it to 0.2 because we know we're on the very outside of it. And our finish overlap, 0.125. And that's it, right? So you have your 3 parts of your M, your letters, and now your perimeter. See, it's starting down here, which is ridiculous. Let's start it over here. Now your start and end points over here. So this is all good. So we're going to just call this M logo test. So that's good. Obviously save accordingly, however you see fit. Highlight the top level of your program. This is going to be your program that you want to do. And you want to make sure that's highlighted, because if you only click one of these, you're only going to post-process for what is in there. So click the top level, actions, post-process. Then you're going to be prompted with this. Obviously, make sure your settings are right. Pierce delay, we don't need it to be that high. We put a 0.8, 0.7. I leave it at 0.8 for thinner material, just so it makes me feel better. Program number is going to be M logo test. And then I usually just copy it and then save in the document as this, M logo test. And I'm going to hit post, and that will generate our G code. Post. Wham. I'm going to go to desktop, Crossfire Pro, NC programs, M logo test. And here it is. So your whole G code, your whole program is here, right? 3 parts of the M. You go down. We'll see the letters somewhere. Oh, it's a pretty big program. So program's so big because the file that came in is compiled of a bunch of different lines and points. So that's why the code is so long. But we could do find letter, and then all your letters are here. And then obviously they have a bunch of lines in them. And then the very last 4 lines, probably maybe 8. Damn, I forgot how many lines there were. And then you're going to do, I think it's under profile, 2D profile. And then that's all your code for what it's going to cut. So G0 is obviously rapid, G92, and then what you think 4 sides, it'll be your entrance on an angle, your side, and so forth. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. For your feed, 60, X, Y, I's and J's are radius call outs. If I remember correctly, I'm a little washed up now. I do have note cards actually around here somewhere, a whole bunch of G codes that I just found from college. And that's it. It'll end. So not going to cut it. Just doing this video as a perspective on how to take an SVG file or a picture file to a SVG file to then a cuttable file that you could then load to your CNC plasma cutter, right? So these are things that I've learned, and it's been super helpful to me. So hopefully you could use this to your advantage. Obviously, give me some feedback, right? Does it work? Do you have better ways to do it? I personally live in my full-time role in a 3D design world, so I like making all the files 3-dimensional before I kind of cut it. That's just a visual thing for me. But it is what it is. Whatever works best for you. I just know that these are the things that have helped me use my machine the best. So I'll try and put some links in the description below if I figure out how to actually upload a video correctly of how to get Inkscape. Obviously, if you have Fusion 360, you know how to get that. And then, I'll try and keep doing these a little bit more as things come on and get more advanced into it. So just let me know your feedback. I just got this camera set up and this microphone, so I'm pretty excited. I want to use it, but also would like to use it to kind of give back to, the things that help me get to where I'm at as far as a side business or designing, freelancing, and things like that. So I appreciate it, and keep on keeping on.